Okay, everybody, welcome to item 2 of the November DAP meeting. This item is being recorded, and this is lot 44. And we do have a little background to this one where there was previously a sketch plan and a site plan of this or a portion of this property back in 2020 when the design concept was 19 condominium units. But now the applicant, again, part of that general development agreement, is proposing to redevelop the parking lot and expand the project to 57 units in a condominium building. But I will hand it over to the applicant to explain.
Thanks, Grace. I'm Matt Gordon again, and we have Broad Branch Realty, another one of the joint venture partners who's taking the lead on the lot 44 piece. And the only thing I have to add to what Grace provided was, since this project has a sketch and site plan approved, and the way that the general development agreement was negotiated with the county for a variety of reasons, it contemplates this project moving at a faster pace, that they will be amending their sketch and site plan to include the lot 44 property, and then including a preliminary plan of subdivision all at once. And it was designated by Robert Cronenberg for the speed to market, which ties into the deeply affordable housing that they're provided earlier.
You're doing a concept plan for that?
So that's sort of what this review is we know we need to come to the DAP more than once. So here, this is our first look at it. And then our plan would be, when the applications get filed in early 2024, to come back at more of a site plan level review.
But you also, you're going to submit a concept plan application. That's a requirement for the speed.
I mean, we can submit essentially what we have, a concept plan today, so we could submit it tomorrow, but that's essentially our schedule. But it's critical for a variety of reasons that they're combined, because the site plan for this project, if we don't get filed, it'll actually lapse, which has ramifications. And then the other reason why the timing is relevant is that DOT did not want them to take offline all these parking spaces at once. So the sequencing is sort of that lot 44, which is a smaller project. It doesn't include the public parking that is being replaced in lot 25, that it would move ahead of lot 25. So it's important for us to combine the applications and get filed in the early part of 2024 and get to the planning board by the early summer, sort of our schedule. But we'll work with Elza and the rest of their team to basically submit what you see here as a concept plan if we need to check that box formally. And with that, I'll hand it over to Jeremy to go through the design.
Sure. Well, you just saw this slide an hour ago, talking about lot 25, but showing the public benefits for lot 44. I think what's really important to talk about on this project is this is a for sale design right now, as we've conceptualized it, with for sale townhomes facing Greenway and for sale condo units in the larger building that are larger size, family size units, and that goes with the MPDUs as well. The MPDUs will be family sized, 3 and 4 bedroom units, which is unusual for this area. Again, looking at context, again, another site that doesn't quite face Wisconsin Avenue, with some low-rise commercial and the transition to the east. And our friend here in this corner, who is not willing to sell right now and demanding the sort of jog in the Greenway. Location plan, I think all familiar with this part of town. Give it to Trini to talk about where, I don't know.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, no, yeah.
I guess we're
It's not
repeating a
ton
lot
to
of
talk
themes
about, but I mean,
from-
what's really interesting about this proposal is that it really allows for the Greenway to connect and to be a continuous element. There is a jog to it, which we actually thought was kind of interesting because it actually sort of brings it in and then connects to the Chase Avenue Park, sort of at the rear end, and makes it, sort of like an important node within that travel and that experience of moving through the spaces. So what we see here, what's interesting is, we're locating those large units facing the park. They have access off the Greenway. So it really will be activated. This will be a place where people will move through if not just only to go into the units, but to move through and connect to the park. The park will be definitely a magnet. And one of the things that this project is doing is actually improve the Chase Avenue Park as part of this whole greenway. So our thought was that as you travel through, there'll be some small notes that people can stop. But it's basically, you know, in essence, sort of that green element and that connectivity component that is what's key to the overall vision of the greenway. I think there are some present images of this. So this is, you know, really more tying to that particularly active element of the playground at the Chase Avenue. So that'll be upgraded, and then having just smaller nodes for people to maybe, you know, sit and socialize and interact. But that's pretty much it.
Sure. So, you know, a little bit different massing formation here on this site. We have out of the master plan, a 70-foot height limit here on site. We have provided a 43-foot-6 greenway between the property line of the single-family home and the face of our townhomes. Because of the program, by massing the townhomes facing that greenway, we've lowered the bulk, and then by the same concept we're talking about in 25, the public benefit of the parking, we are raising the measuring point by measuring from the height of the parking, which in this case is 3 stories above ground and 1 story and a half below ground. So we are able to add 32 feet height, 32 feet to the allowable height of the site, plus or minus. As we get through this site plan, we'll have that finalized. So we end up with approximately 102-foot mass setback from the building. We've formed some bays and other bumps and grinds that give some balconies and light and air to the north side. We only have 1 public frontage on this site, besides the greenway frontage, which is actually not a frontage on the street, if you will, but of course is important.
Public way.
It's a public way. And then West Virginia Avenue is the only public frontage. The west and south ends, south sides of the site are also 10-foot alleys, 10-foot public alleys. The south side is really more functionally a paper alley. There's the surface parking lots of the commercial properties to the south of this, and the lot 44 public parking lot. You know, there's basically a curb between them, and you can't really perceive that alley to the south, but it is there as a public amenity. The idea on the townhome portion of this site is that we would pursue abandonment of that public alley and build to the midpoint of that alley, capturing another 5 feet of width only at the townhome portion.
And that would allow, on the parks piece, we'd work with parks so that their park gets abandoned and expands the size of the public park as well.
Understands the massing here in general. We'll, so just to run through the dimensions quickly to understand it. So we have 103 feet from the curb line to the first facade of the building, which would be the townhomes. And then an additional 41 feet, we're contemplating a 36-foot deep townhome, and then a 5-foot setback above that for the main mass of the tower. So from a standpoint of providing, you know, the 45-degree angle has become a feature where we're 102 feet tall and 144 setback. So our apparent bulk, you know, is perceived much lower than maybe even the site to the north, which is at 70 feet of setback and 70 feet of height. Just more section talking about how we're providing parking up within the building, lining the townhomes. We have a fourth story to the townhome that will have a setback to it for outdoor space for the residents. And the 5-foot setback and balconies facing the greenway, which I know was a topic of conversation. The other topic of conversation in the staff report was the loading parking entrance. And I want to acknowledge the comments. It was a difficult challenge to make this drawing. And it's a lot of conversation. You know, you don't realize how, when you have this little amount of street frontage, you've got a lot to pack in there. We wanted to have a good parking entrance. Programmatically, there was a desire to provide parking adjacent to the townhomes so that townhome residents would have immediate access to an adjacent parking space. And there's just a really limited amount of space to ramp internally. So that really causes us to squeeze here. We have some very steep ramps. We have some challenges internally of laying that out and some efficiency loss. But we also need to provide, you know, an elevator core, a lobby. So what we've done is we've pushed the elevator core as far north as possible. We have to fit in a fire control room. We have to fit in a mail room. We have to find a way to get trash out of the building. So because we are 57 units, right now we're 57 units inclusive of the 6 townhomes. So the tower is a 51 unit building. The zoning code allows to not have loading at 50 units. So we can talk about a waiver or some way we could eliminate the loading, but we felt due to the internal circulation and the challenges there, this layout was how we felt our best option was. I don't have the old sketches with me, but what we were thinking about in this drawing was by separating the parking entrance of the loading, we would not have a 35, 40-foot wide curb cut in the middle of the block. That was our hope. The solution here of putting the loading to the west put, you know, the ugly business of taking trash out of the building and dealing with that as a sort of joint curb cut with the alley. Benihana to the west uses that alley for their own trash removal. So it's kind of not, you know, it's not the best place in downtown Bethesda. So grouping that there and making one unified curb cut for the maneuver of the truck and for the trash trucks that are there, we thought was the best option in front of us. If we talk about a waiver and removing that, loading it, required loading, we could, you know, figure out a way to take trash, roll trash carts out into the alley through the side of the building and roll them to the street for disposal. But I just wanted to throw that out there. There's a lot to fit in this 100-foot of West Virginia Avenue.
And we're going to meet with park and planning and DOT staff and improve the loading and access. So that's something we're working on already.
So I just wanted to talk a little about the typical plan because that helps inform how we thought about the architecture. We felt the best views, the best place for this build, the best views out of this building are to the north and to the east, actually, because of the adjacent potential development sites to the south and west. Views won't be as good unless you're on the very top floor. You just won't have the highest quality space. The desire to build a really large unit luxury kind of product here drives the units to be oriented to the north and the east. And so what we contemplated on the south and west was each of these large units getting their main living space on those sides and then having bedrooms or other secondary spaces with the views to the south and west. We have one unit shown here, does face west, but that's where we had anticipated putting the MPDUs for sale. So the acknowledging the comment, I think, helps drive how we came to the architectural solution we did, which was, providing a lot of glass, a lot of outdoor space for these units in something that someone at this price point would expect, and also help provide light into these deeper units. I think the comment about there should be some verticality introduced to reduce the horizontality, I think is certainly fair and valid and something we can study. But I wanted to provide that background of why we did what we did to help understand these design issues that were commented on. The townhomes came from a more, traditional style of living and a traditional image. Although a contemporary one, I think we can work again to maybe integrate the two architectures closer. I think that was a valid comment as well, and just something we're continuing to develop here. So that's all there is, I think, to talk about. We looked at a number of precedents for townhomes. We could, you see things starting to go in a more contemporary view that you could very easily extrapolate to the tower, and wanted to show just some of the projects we see where we see step massing, we see large amounts of glass, that kind of thing there. So I think if I talk anymore, I'll lose my voice and I'll let everyone weigh in, because I think the presentation is pretty self-explanatory.
So if you go to page 13, I want to just talk about the concept of compatibility. If you look at this diagram, in terms of a massing diagram, it seems like a very compatible diagram, like it's really strong start. And then you go to the final image and the project just lacks this compatibility that's almost uncomfortable to me as an architect. And I realize that you may be willfully trying to say that these are two different developments that are smashed up against each other, as you would typically have in an urban environment. But I think in this particular case, it just was, when I looked at it, I go, this is really strange, very strange, how they're so different from one. When you have as a base foundation on page 13, this very highly compatible diagram.
Can I respond to that?
Sure.
Good point. And I think that there's a lot we can do to integrate the designs, because we're not looking at it as, hey, these are two separate developments. Like there has to be, I agree, integration. And like you said, the transition makes sense, but they are one project and there should be a more cohesive design. I mean, the reality is that early on, when we were developing this concept and the design, like we had an idea of, okay, we like this, for the taller portion. And then we really, it was somewhat of a challenge to come up with a townhouse design that we liked, but also kind of matched that. So it's the kind of thing which it's not that easy, but we will get there. You're right about it. We haven't gotten there yet.
Unsurprising, I'd like to talk about Greenway.
That is your role.
Well, I mean, the townhouses, that's a muse. And the Greenway, in fact, extends from the property to the facade of the townhouse, right? Okay. So we know that circulation and whatever planting is done at the townhouses is done on public land, right?
Yeah.
So, and there's a certain width that you've given for that work. for the walk, for the north-south walk and the front stoop or whatever it's gonna be. Given that circulation between the park to the south, and the rest and the parks, the two parks to the north is, I mean, that dotted line is dreamland. No one's doing that. But they're circulating along the street as people do in a city. That the rest of that, the greenway between the single family house and the townhouse is going to be orphaned. And given that those are market rate townhouses, I presume, right?
Yes.
Okay, so those are real money. If they had a more substantial front garden, giving away some land anyway. And so the concept of entry and approach to the townhouses is already being taken out of the right of way. So why not make it substantial enough that you're actually doing justice to those townhouses, giving them an actual front garden? And since it's, you know, wealthy people going to be living there, they'll take care of it. And
I'm
the
glad
rest of
you're
it-
saying that and not me.
Well, no, I mean, I'm just saying that, I mean, these are
clear.
market rate townhouses. I mean, they could, I mean, they couldn't possibly be under $1 million a piece. I don't know what, no.
Yeah. But they have a really substantial rooftop terrace.
Yes, lovely for them, okay? But if we say that we're going to minimize what's in the greenway for their entry experience, then not only is it a little sort of mean for those townhouses, but it leaves the rest of the greenway as God knows what. It's not going to be occupied by the public, we know that, because the public is going to circulate from the park to the rest of the parks to the north along the sidewalk, because that's what people do.
Well,
There's not a sidewalk.
it's gonna be dedicated to the county.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's-
and
it's
and we,
public
I
signs.
mean, and that
Yeah.
line is actually 10 feet,
That's actually,
10 feet wide.
What's
I mean, the promenade,
The pathway, the
Yeah.
meandering
well,
pathway.
that's fine, but
it's just that it does
People-
connect, John. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's the only
connects
way
to
they
the
can put
park
out
and it
this-
connects to here.
There's-
I mean, I take it that people will sometimes do that. But I think the way that we're integrating it
Yeah.
to the park, the idea is that people do actually go through there.
Yeah.
We want the public to go through
Yeah.
there.
That's also very
Wait.
much the stance of the Parks Department. We're looking to have cohesive, connected Eastern Green districts across these 3 blocks, and this
Yeah.
is an important aspect and piece of it. So
good luck.
take your point that it's gonna be.
And I think
it's
it's,
gonna
I
take
think
some
it
work
could,
to make
I
it
think
work,
it
but
could be,
screen shares.
what we say with dead cats and coffee cups or whatever they call it.
Candy wrap.
Candy wrap. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to imagine that, I mean, you can
Trying to see
pour
where-
money into it and then do your best to maintain it, but it's not gonna have, I mean, it's really related to those townhouses.
So we were actually kind of intentionally not even, pushing the trail sort of closer that way to really making sure there is an entrance to them, but, with the knowledge that these units, their livable space is on the club, it's gonna be more like an upside down unit potentially, I don't know. I mean, we did one of those for EYA actually, at Monument Place in Arlington, and they were, I mean, these were $2 million then.
I
like
have
20
no
years
doubt
ago.
that people will buy these things. That's not the issue. I mean, aside from the fact that, marketing is you guys' business, not mine. But I would like for that public space to be as gracious as possible. And if it were, I understand that there's going to be circulation through.
Yeah.
But to the extent that some of it is,
We were doing the opposite to what you're saying.
I
We were
am-
actually minimizing, there would be a nice stoop and a nice sort of foundation planting, but it is public space. And we were actually put in notes sort of on the other side. And, you know, it's sort of right there. So visually, you know, we're terminating this other one here. So you're right across the street from it. So,
I think that
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, first of all, the first floor plan that you show, the first floor plan, you show the landscape. That's clearly not what you're suggesting here, right?
yeah,
Go to the first floor plan.
what did you do, Jeremy?
Oh,
The screen is,
I wouldn't.
No, we're looking at the corner, right? This is not, this is the existing
Yeah.
condition.
I think
right?
Yeah.
go to the first floor.
the computer does not frozen on me.
I guess the point
You
that
just don't want to show it to us.
I like the diagram. I think the diagram looks nice and then I see how it's the connection. I also think that you have to think of this in the long term. That house will eventually go away. But
It'll open up, yeah.
so this is not what you're suggesting. in the
No.
diagram.
No, not
No.
at all.
Because this puts the trees next to the property and you don't, at least in my opinion, I think you want that pathway and the front gardens have to be something, you know, nice and relatively substantial. And for the time being, it's going to primarily, that's going to be your circulation and there's not much else going to be happening there. Once the house goes away, then the green sort of pushes its way east. And, you know, then there's some delineation of what's going to happen to space. But I think, you know, for instance, those trees, I think need to go sort of next to the pathway rather
Yeah.
than.
Isn't
Yeah.
the pathway actually the way,
This-
you know, there will be then lead walks off that path?
This,
Yeah,
this is
yeah,
the dumb
yeah.
architect saying there's a sidewalk to
Yeah,
get to the front
yeah,
door.
yeah.
That's,
There's no
that's-
landscape architecture contemplated within this.
So I
This
think.
That's all this is.
So if you look at my diagram, I mean, the idea was, you know, we wanted this sort of main spine to be continuous, you know, and kind of fluid. So you can see because of the angle that we're coming from the other side, the idea was sort of to swing it. I think it's further up.
I actually
swing it and
I
then
think your
tie it.
diagram works very well with what you are given here.
Yeah,
I
and
think
ties
maybe
to
it-
the
maybe it
park. I mean,
solved-
it's interesting because this park actually, when you go there today, is really like in the back and it's kind of hard to find.
Yeah.
And now with the new connection, it really opens it up and it really makes
To
it,
reiterate,
you
part
know,
of our-
integrates it.
Part of our consideration of the county doing this whole deal was that we
Giving
are
them
gonna
that
be
land.
renovating that Chase Ave Urban Park, along
Yeah.
with providing that greenway and dedicating it. We are going to be working with parks to completely renovate that park. And we had a community meeting and took a lot of feedback from what they want to see in that park. So
Yeah.
we're excited to do that with you
Yeah.
guys.
And the community is very excited about this and the getting that connection and actually getting a greenway. It's incredibly important to them and they're very excited.
Nobody wants to go walking in the street, I get it.
Right, and there's no sidewalk there anyway.
That's,
And I come from Spain, as you know, I love promenades and I go up and down the Ramblas. This is a little different.
yeah, let's not.
It's
call
a
this
little different, but you know, I do it even without retail. I mean, I know those are, but any space that has sort of, you know, places to walk and sit. I mean, that's what community does, you know, especially nowadays that we're all a little bit more worried about our health and our being active and our 10,000 steps a day. I do them in my car, in my living room.
But
Hey,
John,
can I have
Right.
a couple comments from a developer perspective?
Sure.
This is a small little and difficult layout you guys have in front of you. It's kind of interesting, all the various moving parts. It's a little disjointed from my perspective at the moment, and just a couple things for clarity. If I'm looking at the townhouses properly, they're 4-story townhouses, correct?
They're really 3-story, but where the terrace exists, you know,
Right.
there's like a pop-up, it's set back. You could call it 3.5 stories, I suppose, but the main mass of those townhouses is 3 stories and then a roof terrace with a partial floor on top of those 3 stories.
But I like the term 3.5. If you could go, Jeremy, to slide 21 for a second. if I'm understanding everything properly, sections and plan, that 3,600 amenity space is dark. There's not a piece of natural light in there. Is that right?
That's correct. We needed to eat up that space with something, and obviously it wasn't going to be residential units.
Right.
And so we need to determine exactly what it is.
Right.
But there's obviously, it's not the entirety of our amenity space. We have plenty of other amenity space throughout the building. But, you know, we obviously will have to think through exactly what that is. But in our mind, there's plenty of amenity space that can exist without light.
I'm
without
not,
natural
I'm
light.
not questioning the amount of, I'm questioning the quality of it. That is a
No.
dark hole,
Yeah.
right? 3,600 square feet is a lot of ground area for everything quote unquote artificial. And I was wondering, isn't there a way, if you could gun slot windows, for lack of a better term, into the townhouse 4th story to get natural light? If that's where that space ends up being, just from a programming standpoint and the physical layout of the building, somehow or another, I'd love to see daylight touch that. I think it'd be beneficial to the investor to have daylight touch that amenity space, be it on West Virginia, be it on the Greenway, be it on the other side. So I don't know, you could look at that.
I mean, I guess one thing we actually had talked about is to have that partial 4th story of the townhouse, have it slide a bit forward or a bit east from where you're looking at it. So in theory, that could create at least a little gap and there could be windows, but then, you know, that seemed a little awkward to us because then they're kind of just looking into this small gap and what exactly is going on in the rear of that partial story of the townhouse. So, you know,
Right.
You're right. It's a challenge, and maybe, and this might be where you were going with it. Does that partial area of that 4th story not cover the entire width of the townhouse? So perhaps, right, you create
Correct.
some breaks through which light could come. So that, I mean, that maybe that's the answer.
I think that would make, I would think to make the quality, I think you're going to help on the value side, on your sell side. If you deliver a dark room, and I'll use upstairs at Bethesda Row as an example, and I think Tori Gallus was the architect. You guys gave us a dark room, and it's been a really, really difficult space. Now it's like 1,000 square feet. It's not 3,600. So our challenge is a lot less, but 3,600 is huge. So you guys should study somehow to get some natural light. I think that'd be beneficial, because I think I don't know what you're gonna use that space for. So I think you're on the right track for amenity, but it's just not quality amenity space without some form of natural light.
Lots of cold plunges.
Yeah.
Saunas.
Yeah. No, that's a valid point. It's a valid point. And it's something we thought about. We haven't solved for it yet.
Right.
But as I hear you and think through it, like there's got to be some way to accomplish that. It's just a matter of what makes the most sense without compromising the townhouses themselves.
So let me go then to go to sheet 18.
It is a tough code challenge, John, with the building code and with providing wood frame townhomes adjacent to a concrete building too. So there's been some challenges right on that line.
Yeah.
And putting openings there is not a simple task, but we can certainly study that.
Yeah.
All right, page 18 to a second. So this is without a doubt an unfortunate set of reality. If you take from the front edge of the townhouse to the loading dock, 137 feet essentially, right? 137 feet, of which 105 is your facade of face. Otherwise, I have a door for loading dock. Yes, you've set it back a few feet. I have a door for a parking garage. Yes, I've set it back. And then I have a face for a stair core, which you can treat, landscape and maybe put art on it, whatever. I still don't know why, and I'm sure you have, but I would ask you, you may want to study, you guys do what you want. I would still move the loading dock and or seek relief for the loading dock. With 57 units, essentially you got 104 days out of the year that you're going to have someone coming in and out of the building. And it's just not that many days when you add it up over time. And the fact that you're going to probably have more than 1 year type rollover, meaning people are going to stay longer, you'll even have less need for
Way more.
loading from a truck standpoint. You'll have trash loading, which is obviously is an issue, but somehow or another, I've got, again, my 2/3 number today on that face is just kind of a harsh treatment at the street level. And I don't think you can get away from a lot of it, but I would move the lobby to the corner up against Benihana's and bet on the future that Benihana's is going to be something special. And not put my entrance in the middle with loading, lobby, parking, and a blank wall for my stair core. So it's a tough one, but I get it. So it'd be interesting to do some more study.
You can, have one.
We agree. Yeah.
We tend to agree it's a difficult problem. I don't know if you were on when I gave my spiel about all this early in the presentation. I know you were having trouble connecting.
Yeah, we think there's unique circumstances that the requirement for loading is 50 units or more. This is for sale, like you pointed out, so they're very infrequent for the move-ins and move-outs. And we actually, in the original version of this plan, granted it was only 19 units, and we weren't required to provide loading. We still worked with staff in the community to come up with like an on-street signage and striping
Loading
to
zone.
accommodate, like to figure out a plan. So we do think it would be advantageous to get rid of the loading, which is not going to serve the project. And it'll create a better, public realm and streetscape.
It's to your point, the number of days, it's even certainly on average, way less than the number you gave, right? Because there's not a whole lot of move outs here. They're large for sale units. Once, and we envision a lot of these people also being empty nesters. So like in our mind, yeah, they have a move in and a move out's not going to occur for a long time. So on average, the number of days during which that loading dock would be used is very small. And so it really, in our mind, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it is technically required at 50 units or above, but we're going to talk through this with staff and figure out if there's a way to come up with an alternative solution like we had on the initial site plan, which created like a loading zone on the street right out front.
Right. I think I'd like for the county to hopefully see it that as relief that's warranted, especially since it's a for sale product.
Yeah.
So that's one perspective. And then let me go back one last comment on page 21 again, the dark amenity space. Other than modifying the townhouse 4-story product, if there's a way to slide that amenity space to the south, expand a little bit of the residential to the north, and then grab some space along that southern edge of the building for daylight. That and I flipped the MPDU from the north to the south, and then grab some wall space along that south edge. That to me just feels like it's going to be really important for the quality of that space.
That's an interesting thought. We'd have to, the challenge there is the amount of width we're working with to the north to be able to pick back up that density, but be able to get enough light into those units. But I guess where you're going with it also though is that we don't have to take up the entire width of that MPDU in the south to get some light into the amenity space. That's a good thought too.
Reorient the stair, and you're going to pick up 10 feet of horizontal space there, and you'll have more daylight, and that may be also beneficial.
Yeah, Jeremy in his mind right now is probably the idea of reorienting the stair because it's just it's brain damage. But you're right. It's a good thought.
You're going to lose one parking spot down below. Again, that I just throw caution to building a 3,600 square foot dark room.
It's a very good point. Yeah, I like that. You should look at that.
Yeah.
Anybody else for the panel? We do have some members of the public online. I'd like to give you an opportunity to speak if you'd like. From the Bethesda community.
This is Amanda. I just wanted to say we're just very appreciative that both this project and the prior project have been they've been great at communication with the neighborhood. So we just really appreciate that. And appreciate all the comments of the DAP too.
This is Paige, and I second what Amanda said, shockingly. But both of these projects have been very communicative and open to listening to what the neighborhood says, and we appreciate that. And having listened to all the comments made by the members there, we really appreciate those, and they're very interesting. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you. And so what are we doing today? I'm so confused, I'm sorry. I should know. So, because this does have to go through concept, and then the next time it will be coming as a sketch plan and a site plan amendment.
Sure.
But I think a sketch plan amendment and then a site plan. So I guess
Sketch and site amendment.
It's sketch plan.
As if it's a submitted concept.
could we,
Yeah, well, we can submit that.
so I think,
This we would have to look at it again.
No, this is considered their concept.
So I think we'll probably be back in January for both, well, at least for lot 25, but depends on what this panel, we knew we were going to come back at least once more for lot 44 at a site plan level, but
so there is no straw vote that needs to be taken today because it's just a concept. Yes. And there are no final comments from the panel today.
The only thing I'd like to say is that, this is a master plan idea for this area that came about 7-8 years ago. It's really nice to see that the Greenway actually is going to get to.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
We've been at it for 5 years to figure out a way to make this happen. So I appreciate
This whole thing originated out of eight. It was 8 townhomes on 4702 West Virginia Avenue, and now we're talking about almost 2+ acres of land on 2 different parcels and 260 units and multiple park spaces. So we've worked really hard to get here and gotten to know a lot of you in the process, and we appreciate all the feedback and look forward to hopefully executing very, very soon. Thank you.
I am very excited about it. As the park planner, Bethesda projects, this is amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And on a happy note,
And not voting on anything.
what's that?
We're not voting.
No vote.
Today.
I want to vote on them.
You can vote on a happy end of 2020. Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye,
See
Roy.
you all.